The early morning light filtered softly through the window, painting the simple, worn wooden furniture of their small home with a gentle warmth. Too Deep, her hands already busy preparing a modest breakfast, turned to the small girl engrossed in her activity on the floor. "Hello everyone," she greeted, her voice a soothing melody that always put Nhi at ease. "What are you doing, Nhi?" The little girl, her brow furrowed in concentration, just looked up, a crayon clutched in her tiny hand. "Yes, I'm coloring," she chirped, holding up a page filled with vibrant, uneven strokes. Diep smiled, a weary but loving expression. He was reading a picture book, an old, beloved companion. "Are you reading this book?" Diep asked, kneeling beside her. "Yes, today you have a day off from school to stay with Miss Diep." It was a rare treat, a day when he could simply be, away from the structured lessons, immersed in the quiet rhythm of their life. Yet, in the midst of their peaceful morning, a familiar question emerged from his innocent lips, a question that carried a subtle weight for Diep. "Oh, why isn't Uncle James coming to play with you today?" Diep's smile softened, a flicker of something undefinable passing through her eyes. "Uncle James must be busy," she said, her voice reassuring, even as a tiny knot of concern tightened in her own chest. She always tried to shield Nhi from the uncertainties that often shadowed their days. "Let Miss Diep call and let Uncle James see." She picked up her simple mobile phone, the device feeling heavy in her hand, a conduit to a world that often felt distant and demanding. "Yes, your subscriber. Please leave a message. Please leave a message." The automated voice on the other end delivered its impersonal message, confirming Diep's silent fears. "Uncle James's battery must be dead," Diep explained to Nhi, trying to sound casual, despite the disappointment that pricked her. "Miss Diep can't call. Let Miss Diep call back later." She knew, deep down, it wasn't just a dead battery. James was often consumed by his endeavors, driven by an ambition she admired but sometimes struggled to comprehend. "Yes, Uncle James is very busy with work. Only when Uncle James has time can I come play with Nhi. Nhi, don't be sad." She gently stroked Nhi's hair, a silent promise to make the day special, regardless. "Yes, I'll go cook noodles and we'll eat later." Outside, the sun was climbing higher, casting long shadows across their small plot of land. The soil, rich and dark, lay waiting, tilled and prepared. Diep had spent countless hours turning it over, breaking up the clods, her hands aching but her spirit resilient. "Yes, sit well, this land is almost ready to plant vegetables." She surveyed the patch with a quiet sense of satisfaction. It was a humble effort, a few rows of greens to supplement their meals, but it represented independence, a small victory against the vagaries of market prices and unreliable harvests. The air hummed with the sounds of rural life, a distant rooster's crow, the rustle of leaves, the soft murmur of the wind. She hoped they would do well, this small investment of her labor and dreams. The land was indeed ready, the earth yielding to her touch, a promise of green abundance. Yet, the small joys of cultivation were often accompanied by practical challenges. "Miss Diep, have you planted vegetables yet? Have you planted them?" Nhi's voice, full of innocent eagerness, drew Diep from her thoughts. "Yes, this land is almost ready to plant vegetables, but we have to fence it in or else the chickens will scratch it all." Diep pointed to the telltale marks near the edge of the patch. "They've already come up here to scratch it." Protecting their nascent crops was an ongoing battle against the ever-present poultry that roamed freely in the village. "Nhi, go inside," Diep urged, her tone firm but gentle, guiding the little girl away from the muddy patch. Later, the savory aroma of instant noodles wafted afar on their tiny kitchen, a comforting scent that spoke of simplicity and warmth. Diep carefully poured the steaming broth into a bowl, the noodles swirling invitingly. "Yes, here's yours." She placed the bowl before Nhi, who was already perched expectantly at their small wooden table. Diep blew gently on a spoonful, testing its temperature. "Let me blow on it for you." "Yes, it smells so good, let me see if it's hot." The simple act of care was a ritual, a silent exchange of love. "Thank you, Miss Diep." His voice was soft, filled with genuine gratitude. "Eat well." "Yes, eat a lot, okay." Diep encouraged, watching as he happily slurped the noodles, her small face alight with contentment. The meal was a quiet affair, punctuated by the soft sounds of eating and the occasional clink of chopsticks against the bowl. Diep observed her heart swelling with affection. The child was her anchor, her reason to strive and endure. The challenges of life in their remote village were many, from unpredictable weather to the constant financial tightrope walk, but his presence made it all worthwhile. "Eat carefully, are you full?" Diep asked, seeing he slow down. "Yes, I'm full, Miss Diep, please clean up." His words were a clear signal of satiety. Diep nodded, gathering the dishes. Just then, a small, scruffy dog, its fur matted and its eyes wide with a mix of timidity and curiosity, wandered into their yard. "Yes, whose dog is this?" Diep wondered aloud. He, ever observant, quickly noticed the newcomer. "Have you eaten instant noodles, Miss Diep?" she asked, her attention diverted. "Let me wash the dishes." "I can't wash them." Diep chuckled softly, gently taking the dishes from his eager but clumsy hands. "You'll be done in a moment, then go inside and play." She glanced at the dog, which now sat tentatively near the edge of their porch. "Why is there a dog here?" he asked, captivated by the new creature. "I don't know whose dog it is, Miss Diep. This dog is so cute." His voice held a hopeful plea. "Miss Diep, can you take care of it?" Diep considered the animal, then her limited resources. "Oh, I don't know whose dog it is either," she replied, pragmatic. "If it's here, just let it stay there. It'll probably come up here to find food and then come back here, my child." She tried to temper his expectations, but then remembered a past promise. Uncle James said he'll buy a puppy. The thought brought a small, hopeful flicker to his eyes. "Come here, let me," Diep called to the dog, offering a small piece of leftover noodle. "And later there'll be a puppy here to play with me." She hoped James would remember his promise, a small comfort in their often solitary lives. The sun beat down with increasing intensity as Diep prepared for the next task. "Yes, stay here, be good." "Yes, Miss Diep, go to the pineapple garden to see if the grass is tall. Miss Diep will weed the pineapple garden." She needed me to be safe and out of the sun. "Be good, stay here, remember?" "Yes, don't go around, remember?" He nodded, engrossed in the dog. Diep cast one last glance at the stray. "Yes, I don't know whose dog it is." The pineapple garden was a significant distance, a journey through winding paths and rolling hills. James had acquired this land recently, part of his expanding ventures, but its management was proving to be a challenge Diep hadn't anticipated. The vast expanse of the pineapple garden stretched before her, a verdant sea of spiky leaves under the harsh sun. The sheer scale of it was daunting. "James said he bought the whole garden," Diep murmured to herself, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. "Now I have to take care of them so they have big fruit." But her knowledge of pineapple cultivation was limited. She saw rows upon rows of plants, many of them choked by weeds, others struggling to produce fruit. "But this litter is very large, I don't know if James bought all of them or how much more." The acquisition had been sudden, a grand gesture from James, but the practicalities of managing such a large-scale agricultural operation were falling squarely on Diep's shoulders. She resolved to ask him again later for clarification. Many of the fruits were still small, not yet ripe, but their size hinted at the potential yield. They're not ripe yet. They're already this big. The fruit is really big, she noted, examining a particularly plump pineapple. But I don't know how to take care of them. The local farmers often relied on traditional methods, passed down through generations, but James's ambitions seemed to require a more modern, systematic approach. This was where the gap in her experience became painfully clear. It seems like James has hired someone to spray weed killer, she observed, seeing patches where the weeds had withered. The idea of chemical use made her slightly uneasy, preferring the natural method she knew. I have to call James. How to take care of them? She felt a surge of frustration. I just learned how to take care of them, she admitted, the weight of responsibility pressing down. I admit this garden is really large. Below the pineapple patch, she could discern the distinctive leaves of grapefruit trees. Below are grapefruit trees, above are no grapefruit trees, she mused, trying to make sense of the diverse plantation. But I don't know how to take care of them. Call James. Her fingers fumbled with her phone again. If possible, I'll ask how to take care of them. I'll take care of them too. She tried to reach him, her voice filled with a desperate hope for guidance. Please leave a message after the beep because the subscriber you just called is currently unavailable. The call is charged at normal phone rates. Please leave a message after the beep, the automated voice repeated, a cold, unfeeling barrier. He must be too busy with work. Diep sighed, the disappointment heavy. I'll try to go outside his house later to see what you can do. The task felt overwhelming, a monumental undertaking for someone with limited experience and even more limited time. Hours passed under the relentless sun. Diep toiled, pulling weeds by hand, trying to recall snippets of advice from older villagers, but the sheer volume of work was exhausting. Her hands were caked with soil. Her back ached, and her spirit felt a little dimmer with each failed attempt to reach James. I can't do this. I can't do it, she muttered, the frustration finally boiling over. When she returned home, he was still coloring, the stray dog now curled peacefully at her feet. Go inside and sit down. Go inside, it's dirty here, Diep said, seeing the dust and leaves clinging to her clothes. But I think it's hard for you. He, ever eager to help, looked up. Let me do it with you. I can do it, she declared, picking up a small, blunt tool. Diep shook her head, a tender smile returning. It's okay, I'm not tired. She gently steered he back to her coloring. What are you doing? Yes, I'm coloring, he replied, oblivious to Diep's inner turmoil. Later, Diep decided to focus on something more tangible, something she knew she could manage. The grapefruit trees, though part of James's larger acquisition, seemed more accessible. She approached a tree laden with large, round fruits, their green skin promising a burst of flavor. Let me try to see if it's delicious. Let me peel it first. She carefully peeled one, the rind releasing a fragrant citrus scent. Yes, I don't know if it's delicious. James had a knack for finding good opportunities. Uncle James bought the whole garden of these grapefruits. Now I'll pick some to take to the market to sell. She thought of the income it could bring, a small cushion against their daily struggles. If they're delicious, I'll go pick a lot. This was practical, manageable. Yes, today you're on holiday. She turned to the little girl.